The Pacific in June 1942 stretches wide and indifferent, a blue desert broken only by the wakes of ships that move with silent intent. On this ocean, history bends. In our world, Yamato never reached the Battle of Midway. She remained in home waters, a symbol hidden more than used. But here, in this reimagined world, she sails at the heart of the fleet. Her presence is not fantasy. It is the product of fear, politics, and ambition. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto had argued endlessly with his staff. Many of his commanders insisted that Yamato, the Empire's most precious jewel, should remain safe, a last reserve to be used only if the Americans threatened the homeland. But others, politicians, army generals, even the Emperor himself, demanded that Yamato be seen. After Pearl Harbor, after the lightning conquests across Asia, Japan's people hungered for a decisive blow. The propaganda machine long promised that Yamato would crush the enemies of the Empire. Now, with Midway as the target, Yamamoto relented. He would bring his flagship forward. The decision had logic, not only politics. The invasion of Midway required an amphibious landing. The island was bristling with bunkers, airstrips, and hardened defenses. Carrier planes could hammer it, yes, but only so much. To guarantee success, Yamato's 18-inch guns would join the assault. No bunker could withstand them. No runway would survive their thunder. Yamato would flatten Midway before the first soldier stepped ashore. So she came. Towering, immense, a mountain of steel sliding across the Pacific. Her escorts crowded around her. Heavy cruisers, sleek destroyers, supply ships shadowing in the distance. Behind them crept the transports, their holds filled with soldiers, fuel, ammunition, everything needed to seize and hold Midway. And fanning outward like wings, the four carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, each with decks packed tight with Zero fighters, torpedo planes, and dive bombers. Japanese sailors whispered when they looked at Yamato. She was not just a battleship, she was destiny given form. At over 70,000 tons, she dwarfed every vessel afloat. Her guns fired shells so heavy they could punch through anything the Americans possessed. To them, Yamato was proof that the Empire was blessed by the gods. But across the ocean, the Americans were not blind. Codebreakers had given Admiral Chester Nimitz a warning. Midway was the target. His only hope was to ambush. Enterprise and Hornet sailed to a hidden position northeast of the atoll. Yorktown, hastily patched after Coral Sea, joined them despite her wounds. Nimitz knew his carriers were outnumbered. He also knew that Yamato was with the Japanese fleet. That knowledge carried weight. It meant no surface engagement could be risked. Against Yamato, no American battleship could hope to survive. The only weapon left was the airplane. On Midway itself, Marines sweated in the tropical heat, digging deeper trenches, wiring the beaches with explosives, manning gun pits with grim determination. The airstrip throbbed with activity as battered Marine fighters and Army bombers stood ready, their crews pale but steady. They did not know that soon, for the first time in history, Yamato's massive guns would fire in anger. Dawn broke on June 4th with a deceptive calm. The Pacific lay like glass, reflecting the rising sun in sheets of gold. Japanese carriers turned into the wind, their decks alive with motion. Planes rolled forward, props biting the air, bombs hanging beneath their bellies. Fighters lifted first, then bombers in streams. The air was filled with the growl of engines. The first strike arrowed toward Midway. Aboard Yamato, preparations were more deliberate. Her rangefinders tracked, her turrets slowly elevated. The order passed down through armored tubes, prepare for shore bombardment. In the gunnery stations deep within the ship, men checked the enormous shells, each taller than a man, weighing more than a car. Powder bags were hoisted, breeches slammed shut. Then the fire order came. 9 guns spoke at once. The sound was not sound, but an earthquake, a concussion that seemed to empty the air from men's lungs. The shells climbed into the sky like meteors, hung for a moment in silence, then fell upon Midway. The island convulsed. Fuel tanks erupted in fireballs. A hangar folded in on itself like paper. Concrete bunkers cracked open, men inside thrown against walls as though the earth itself had betrayed them. The first Japanese wave arrived moments later. Dive bombers peeled downward, their wingtips glinting in the morning sun, their bombs screaming into craters already torn by Yamato's guns. Torpedo planes strafed gun pits and trenches. Zero fighters cut the sky into ribbons, hunting down every Marine plane that dared rise. Anti-aircraft batteries hammered back, filling the sky with black bursts. Zeros tumbled, bombers caught fire, but still the weight of attack was crushing. Midway burned. From Enterprise and Hornet, American pilots scrambled. They flew in loose formations, nerves taut. Fuel gauges already a concern. They knew they were flying into a storm unlike any before. Some muttered prayers, others clenched their jaws. They all knew the odds. They found the Japanese fleet just before noon. To the young American pilots, the sight was terrifying. Carriers in formation, destroyers weaving, cruisers bristling, and at the center, Yamato, a leviathan that seemed to make the sea too small. This was no longer a battle of equals, it was David against Goliath, except Goliath had brought an army. The first American wave pushed in anyway. Torpedo bombers skimmed the waves, bombers climbed for their dives, wildcats scattered to fend off Zeros. The ocean became chaos, planes burning, ships firing, the sky torn apart by flak. Through it all, Yamato steamed steady, her decks shaking with each new salvo, her guns pounding Midway into silence. For the Americans, the challenge was not just to hurt the carriers, it was to survive long enough to matter. The battle had begun in earnest. The first American wave races westward, engines rattling, wings trembling under the strain of low-level flight. In the cockpits, sweat stings eyes, hands clamp down on throttles, radios hiss with clipped bearings and rushed warnings. They know what lies ahead, the largest fleet ever assembled by Japan, a steel armada built to erase them from the Pacific, and in its center, the shadow of Yamato. The devastators go first, hugging the waves, torpedoes slung beneath their bellies. Above them, dauntless dive bombers climb steadily, straining for altitude, while wildcats fan out, already bracing for the inevitable clash with Zeros. Each man knows his role. They may not come back, but they must strike hard enough to buy their fleet another day. Through a break in the haze, the Japanese fleet materializes. Carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, their decks alive with the chaos of recovery and rearming. Destroyers weave tight patterns around them, throwing froth into the sea. Cruisers hold their lines like watchful sentinels. And then, there she is. Yamato. Larger than imagination, a cliff of steel gliding through the water, her massive turrets already traversing, her escorts close as if protecting a queen. The Americans steel themselves. The sky erupts. Zeros pour upward, their engines shrieking, their wings flashing in the sunlight. The merge is brutal. Wildcats dive to intercept, tracers stitching across the blue. A Zero disintegrates under concentrated fire, but another slips behind a devastator, riddling it until it cartwheels into the sea. Radio calls fill with clipped shouts and static screams. Still, the torpedo planes press on. They skim low, so low that spray streaks across canopies, so low that tracer fire stitches the water around them. Japanese destroyers open up with everything: machine guns, rapid-fire cannon, flak shells bursting just above the waves. One devastator explodes in a sudden orange blossom. Another limps forward with its fuselage torn open. But 3, 4, 5 manage to drop their torpedoes. Silver trails carve the ocean toward Yamato's flank. The giant answers with grace unexpected for her size. Her helm swings, her bulk leaning, her escorts darting to intercept. One destroyer throws itself into the path, taking the full blow. A white wall of water swallows it, leaving only wreckage and oil. Another torpedo passes just short of Yamato's stern, detonating in her wake. The rest veer wide as the behemoth steadies again. Yamato is scarred by spray but unhurt. Above, the Dauntlesses begin their dives. The pilots cut their engines, tilt forward, and fall like arrows. The scream of wind fills their ears. Bomb doors yawn open. Kaga looms below, her deck packed with planes and fuel hoses. Crosshairs settle, the moment stretches, and then the bombs release. Explosions ripple across her deck. Fire erupts. Planes flip and burn. Kaga staggers, smoke belching skyward. Another Dauntless targets Soryu, dropping a bomb just aft of her bridge. The blast tears through the superstructure, scattering men like dolls. Flames lick outward, yet damage control crews swarm instantly, trained for this moment, racing with hoses and foam. The carriers are hurt, but not broken. American radios shout with triumph, then despair as Zeros slice through. Dauntlesses twist in desperate spirals, some plunging into the ocean, others trailing fire. Only a handful escape. Meanwhile, Yamato's secondary batteries join the fray. Dozens of 127mm guns bark into the sky, flak shells bursting in patterns meant to cage attackers. One devastator vanishes in a puff of smoke and falling debris. Another loses its wing, spiraling down like a broken toy. For the first time in her short, secretive career, Yamato bleeds gunpowder against aircraft. She is no longer just a symbol. She is a fortress alive in battle. But even fortresses can be wounded. A Dauntless, pressing through curtains of fire, dives almost vertically onto Yamato herself. The pilot holds steady until his canopy cracks with heat, then releases. The bomb punches into the armored deck near turret number 3. The explosion rips paint and steel, tossing men from their stations, setting small fires. Alarms howl. Yamato lists slightly. For a heartbeat, the impossible seems possible. Damage control crews respond instantly. Pumps roar to life. Fire hoses spit arcs of water, watertight doors slam shut. Within minutes, smoke thins, the ship steadies. The wound is real, but Yamato still breathes, still moves, still fights. For the Americans, the cost is unbearable. Nearly every devastator is gone. Many dauntlesses never climb back into the sky. Wildcats fight until their guns click empty, then dive suicidally into zeros or flee back east with what little fuel remains. When the survivors stagger home, their voices on the radio are hoarse, their fuel gauges near zero, their hearts heavy. And yet they have drawn blood. Kaga burns badly, Soryu limps, Yamato smokes from a fresh scar. Proof, if nothing else, that Japan can bleed. Back on Enterprise and Hornet, the mood is mixed. Crews cheer the damage inflicted. Officers tally the missing. For Admiral Spruance, the conclusion is clear. Japan has been hurt, but not nearly enough. His fleet has thrown its first punch. The second must follow, or all is lost. Aboard Yamato, the atmosphere is colder. Captain Takayanagi stalks the bridge, his voice clipped as he receives reports. One carrier crippled but still afloat, another smoking. Yamato damaged but operational. Escorts down a destroyer, a cruiser limping. Losses, heavy, but acceptable. His men whisper that the gods favored them, that Yamato has proven untouchable. He does not share their certainty. He knows this was only the opening act. Admiral Yamamoto listens to the reports from Akagi. His carriers are hurt but alive. His fleet remains dangerous. More importantly, Midway lies in ruins, still burning under Yamato's thunder. The island's runways are shattered, its guns are silent. The invasion can still proceed. He issues the order, prepare the second wave, this time not against Midway, this time against the American carriers. The sun arcs overhead, smoke drifts on the wind, and across the ocean American decks brace for what is coming. The battle is far from decided. The sun drifts westward, casting long shadows across the sea. The morning's chaos leaves both fleets bleeding, but neither broken. Smoke trails drift like scars across the horizon. The Americans lick their wounds, counting the wreckage of their squadrons. The Japanese regroup, their carriers battered but afloat. And in the center, Yamato plows forward, scarred yet unbowed, her massive hull steady as though daring the Pacific to strike again. On Enterprise's bridge, Admiral Spruance studies reports with grim precision. Kaga and Soryu burning. Yamato damaged but still operational. American squadrons decimated. He knows the odds. He has hurt the enemy, but not enough. Worse, his fleet has revealed its position. The Japanese will not hesitate. The counterstrike is coming. He orders his surviving squadrons rearmed and fueled, but time is short. Aboard Akagi, Admiral Nagumo's staff moves with frantic discipline. Smoke still curls from the forward deck where damaged crews scrub away the scars of earlier hits. Kaga lists heavily, but her engines still run, and Soryu limps under her own power. Hiryu, less damaged, launches fresh planes, her deck crews working as if driven by vengeance itself. Within minutes, a new strike force lifts into the air, dive bombers, torpedo planes, and fighters in disciplined knots. Their target is no longer the island of Midway. It is the American carriers. Far below, Yamato's gunnery crews receive new orders. The bombardment of Midway has achieved its purpose. The island is crippled. Now the battleship must prepare for a different role. She will advance with the fleet, her massive guns ready to strike at any American ship unlucky enough to fall within range. The Japanese strike force finds its prey by mid-afternoon. Enterprise and Hornet steam eastward, zigzagging, their decks buzzing with frantic preparations. Yorktown lags behind, her hull already wounded, her crew fighting fires from the morning's punishment. To Japanese eyes, the scene looks vulnerable, a scattered group against the weight of an empire. The attack begins. Dive bombers roll into their descents, the sky shrieking with their dives. Torpedo planes skim the waves, spreading to encircle Yorktown. Wildcats rise to meet them, but too few remain. The merge is swift and brutal. Zeros shred the interceptors, bullets sparking across wings and fuselages. The bombs fall. Yorktown takes 2 direct hits, one near her island, another plunging deep into her hangar deck. Explosions bloom, tearing through planes and fuel lines. Smoke pours skyward in black towers. Torpedoes strike her starboard side, one after another, the hull groaning as compartments flood. She staggers, lists, rights herself briefly, then tilts again. Her crew fights with desperate courage, sealing hatches, counter-flooding, dragging hoses through smoke-filled corridors. For a moment, it seems she might survive, as she had at Coral Sea. But this time the punishment is too much. Slowly, Yorktown heels over, her bow dipping, her stern rising. Men leap into the oily sea as their ship rolls, slides, and finally disappears beneath the waves. Yorktown is gone. On Enterprise, the deck shudders as near misses erupt, geysers soaking the flight crews. A bomb strikes her aft elevator, tearing open the deck and igniting a roaring fire below. Men rush with hoses, dragging wounded comrades from the flames. Another bomb slams into her forward section, ripping apart compartments and flooding them instantly. Enterprise staggers, smoke pouring from her. But she does not sink, not yet. Hornet fares little better. A torpedo grazes her stern, twisting her rudder. A bomb tears open her midships deck, scattering debris across planes waiting to launch. Fires spread despite desperate crews throwing bombs and fuel tanks overboard to save the ship. She limps, wounded but afloat, her crew fighting for every inch of steel. The Japanese squadrons peel away, their work done. The ocean smolders. One American carrier lies beneath the waves, another crippled, a third burning. For the Japanese, the moment feels like destiny fulfilled. For the Americans, it feels like doom. And then Yamato speaks. Her lookouts report shapes on the horizon, the silhouettes of Enterprise and Hornet, limping eastward. The range is long, over 20 miles, but within the reach of her 18-inch guns. Orders ripple down through her armored innards. The great turrets traverse, barrels elevating with mechanical grace. Crews wait in tense silence, hands on triggers, hearts hammering. The fire order comes. Yamato convulses with thunder. 9 shells rise into the sky, each a mountain in motion. They vanish, then descend in silence. A plume erupts beside Enterprise, towering higher than her mast, the shockwave tearing open seams. Another lands short, a near miss that nonetheless lifts the carrier's stern from the water, flooding compartments. A third strikes true, smashing through her bow and detonating deep inside. Steel folds, compartments vanish in fire. Enterprise groans, her deck buckling, her forward section sinking lower. For the men aboard Hornet, the sight is apocalyptic. They watch as Yamato's second salvo comes, plumes bracketing them, water and fire raining down. One shell lands just short of the flight deck, the concussion ripping men from their feet. Another smashes through the hangar, exploding among stacked ordnance. The carrier shakes violently, flames spreading uncontrolled. Her list grows sharper. Still she fights, guns hammering, damaged crews refusing to yield. By late afternoon, the sea is transformed. Yorktown lies beneath the waves. Enterprise limps, her forward section shattered. Hornet burns, her rudder useless, drifting under the smoke. The Americans are broken, their carrier power crippled. But the Japanese are not unscathed. Kaga still burns, her crew fighting to keep her afloat. Soryu's forward deck is twisted metal, smoke pouring from open seams. Hiryu, though intact, is depleted of planes and fuel. And Yamato, though triumphant, carries her own wounds, scars from bombs, compartments flooded by torpedoes, men lost in the morning's fury. Yet she still sails, she still fires. And in the eyes of her crew, she has proven her purpose. Admiral Yamamoto stands on her bridge, the Pacific wind tugging at his cap. He knows the cost, but he also knows what he has gained. Midway lies defenseless. The American carriers lie ruined. The balance of the Pacific has shifted. Night approaches, the horizon crimson with fire and smoke. The battle is not yet finished, but already history has turned. The sun sinks lower, turning the Pacific into a canvas of crimson and black. The horizon is thick with smoke, columns that drift and mingle until they blot out the sky. The Americans fight to hold on, but the day is slipping from their grasp. Yorktown is gone, swallowed by the ocean. Enterprise lists heavily, her bow torn open, flames licking her deck. Hornet drifts crippled, fires raging through her hangar. Their escorts crowd close, destroyers and cruisers laying smoke, desperate to shield the dying carriers. Aboard Enterprise, Captain George Murray refuses to abandon ship. His men battle the inferno with hoses and axes, pumping water into the hungry blaze. Pilots circle overhead, searching for a place to land, their fuel dwindling to fumes. One by one, they ditch in the sea, their comrades watching helplessly as parachutes bloom against the fading light. On the bridge, Admiral Spruance stares eastward. He knows he cannot save his carriers. He can only hope to save the men who still live. But the Japanese intend to finish what they began. From Hiryu's deck, the last functional squadrons launch into the dusk. Torpedo planes ride low, their bellies heavy. Dive bombers climb against the darkening sky. Fighters escort them, Zeros still sharp despite hours of combat. Their orders are clear: destroy the survivors, remove America's carriers from the war. Yamato joins the hunt. Her forward turrets swing eastward, rangefinders adjusting, gunnery crews waiting for coordinates. The battleship moves at 16 knots, her escorts bristling around her, pushing forward through the blackened water. The giant is wounded, scarred by bombs, compartments flooded, but her engines still beat strong. For the men aboard her, the coming night is their chance to carve history into steel. The strike force finds the Americans just as twilight settles. Enterprise and Hornet lie vulnerable, their decks scarred, their defenses thin. Wildcats rise, but too few remain. Zeros pounce on them, twisting and clawing in dogfights lit by tracers. Bombers push through. Enterprise is hit first. A dive bomber slips through the flak and releases from near vertical. The bomb strikes her forward deck, detonating in the hangar. Flames roar upward, fireballing planes and fuel lines. Her deck sags, men tumbling into the sea. Another bomb crashes into her aft section, shattering her elevators. Enterprise reels, her proud silhouette broken, her heart pierced. Captain Murray gives the inevitable order. Abandon ship. Sirens wail. Men climb down ropes, leap into the oily water. Enterprise, the veteran of countless battles, sinks slowly into the gathering dark, her island slipping beneath the waves with a final groan of steel. Hornet fights on. She has survived the afternoon's blows, but her strength is nearly gone. The Japanese torpedo planes line up their runs, cutting low across the waves. The first strikes amidships, detonating with a roar that rips through her bulkheads. A second torpedo slams into her stern, twisting the rudder beyond repair. Hornet lists hard, fire spreading, her pumps overwhelmed. The crew fights with heroic fury, but the order comes, prepare to abandon ship. The last bomb finds her as men scramble over the side, exploding near the bridge and sealing her fate. Slowly, Hornet heels over, her bow rising, her stern sinking into the blood-red sea. She goes down with fire still burning on her decks. The ocean grows quiet. 3 American carriers are gone. Their escorts scatter eastward, laying smoke, rescuing survivors fleeing into the night. The once proud American task force is no more. On Yamato's bridge, Admiral Yamamoto receives the news in silence. He does not smile. He knows the cost. Kaga is gone, consumed by flames. Soryu barely clings to life, her decks a twisted ruin. Hiryu is bloodied but afloat. Hundreds of pilots and crewmen will never return. Yet the result is undeniable. The enemy's carriers are finished. Midway lies undefended. The path forward is open. As darkness settles, Yamato's great guns fire one last time that day. Not at ships, but at Midway itself. Salvos of 18-inch shells arc through the night, glowing embers that descend in thunderous blossoms. The island shakes under the bombardment. Bunkers collapse, runways crater anew. What little resistance remains is buried under a storm of steel. The Marines fight on with rifles and machine guns, but their situation is hopeless. Out at sea, Japanese transports begin their approach. Landing craft are lowered, engines sputtering as they form into lines. Soldiers check their rifles, fix bayonets, whisper prayers to ancestors. They gaze at the horizon where Yamato's silhouette towers against the burning sky and feel invincible. Tomorrow, they will land. Tomorrow, they will raise the rising sun over Midway. For the Americans, the night is filled with grief. Survivors cling to rafts, oil-stained, eyes hollow, listening to the distant thunder of Yamato's guns. Rescue destroyers haul men aboard, their decks crowded with the wounded and the broken. In the dim red glow of battle lanterns, officers whisper the unthinkable. The fleet is gone. Midway is lost. The Pacific is silent now, save for the crackle of flames and the distant rumble of engines. A chapter has closed. A new one begins. In Washington, the news will soon arrive. In Tokyo, celebrations will erupt. But here, on this sea of shadows and fire, the battle is over. Midway has fallen. The morning after the battle dawns gray and heavy. Smoke still clings to the horizon. The sea is scattered with wreckage, life rafts drifting, oil fires crackling on the waves, and the bodies of sailors rocking in the swell. Midway, once a stubborn fortress in the Pacific, now lies smoldering under the rising sun flag. Japanese landing craft grind ashore, ramps slamming into the sand. Soldiers pour forward, rifles ready, boots sinking into the blood-stained beaches. The Marines who still live fight with stubborn courage, firing rifles from ruined bunkers, manning machine guns until the barrels glow. But Yamato's bombardment has left little standing. Runways are cratered, hangars shattered, fuel stores burning. Resistance flickers out in pockets, overwhelmed by the tide of men pouring ashore. By noon, the rising sun is hoisted over Midway. Japanese engineers begin surveying the runways even as the smoke still rises. Bulldozers are offloaded. Fuel drums are rolled onto the sand. Within days, Midway will no longer be a scarred battlefield but a forward base, bristling with guns and aircraft staring eastward toward Hawaii. Offshore, Yamato rests at anchor. Her hull is streaked with smoke, her armor dented, patches already welded across her decks. She carries the scars of the day before, bomb damage near her aft turret, compartments flooded by torpedoes, dozens of her crew dead. Yet she remains upright, her flag snapping in the breeze. To the sailors who survived, she is no longer simply a ship. She is proof that the Empire's will cannot be broken. The cost is enormous. Kaga lies at the bottom of the Pacific. Soryu is barely afloat, her decks twisted, her crew exhausted. Hiryu has survived, but lost most of her air groups. Hundreds of Japan's best pilots will never return. The fleet has won, but at a terrible price. Still, the Empire celebrates. To them, Midway is the decisive victory long promised. Yamato has proven her worth. The Americans have been crushed. In Tokyo, church bells ring and factory whistles scream. Crowds flood the streets, waving flags and shouting Yamato's name. Newspapers declare the battle a new Pearl Harbor, a second blow that will drive America from the Pacific. Posters depict Yamato as a goddess of steel, her guns blazing, her silhouette towering over a shattered American fleet. School children memorize poems about her. The Empire basks in the glow of triumph. Admiral Yamamoto, though celebrated as a genius, feels no joy. He bows before the Emperor, reports the victory with calm precision, and accepts the honors thrust upon him. But in the quiet of his quarters aboard Yamato, he reads the casualty lists. The price is higher than anyone admits. Japan has won Midway, but her carrier strength is bleeding away, and her pilots, irreplaceable, are gone in droves. He knows America's factories are only beginning to wake, yet he cannot voice his doubts. Victory must be celebrated, or it will slip away before it has meaning. Across the ocean, Washington reels. Roosevelt's cabinet gathers in grim silence. 3 carriers are gone. Midway has fallen. The Pacific Fleet is crippled. For the first time since Pearl Harbor, there is no silver lining, no sudden reversal, only loss. Newspapers print black headlines. Midway captured, carriers lost. Yamato unstoppable. The public, still raw from Pearl Harbor, now trembles at the thought of Japanese expansion unchecked. On the west coast, civilians scan the horizon, fearing invasion. In Hawaii, Pearl Harbor braces for a new attack, its defenses stretched thin, its commanders weary. Factories in Detroit and Seattle roar to life, but the men who work there know it will be years before new carriers are ready. The question gnaws at everyone. Can America survive long enough to fight back? Survivors from Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown return home on battered destroyers and oil-stained rafts. Their stories spread quickly. They tell of Yamato shrugging off bombs, of torpedoes exploding harmlessly against her armor, of her shells landing with the force of earthquakes. They describe the sky filled with zeros, the sea littered with burning planes, the helplessness of watching carriers sink beneath their feet. To them, Yamato is not just a ship. She is a monster, a living nightmare. Yet even nightmares have limits. For Japan, Midway is both triumph and trap. Their pilots are gone, their carriers are crippled, their fuel supplies stretched thin. Yamato stands tall, but she cannot fight alone. The Empire has seized a prize, but it has also awakened something vast and terrible across the ocean. Because in America, grief hardens into resolve, Roosevelt addresses the nation, his voice steady despite exhaustion. He admits the loss, he honors the fallen, and he promises revenge. He calls on every citizen to give more steel, more oil, more sacrifice. He warns that the war will be longer, harder, bloodier than anyone imagined. But he swears that America will not yield. In Tokyo, they celebrate. In Washington, they grieve. And across the Pacific, Yamato sits at anchor, her decks scarred, her crew exhausted, her guns silent at last. For one shining moment, she has fulfilled her destiny. She has led her fleet to victory, brought Midway under the rising sun, and struck a blow that reshaped the war. History in our world turned at Midway because the Japanese carriers fell. In this world, history turns differently because Yamato came and because she endured. The Empire stands at its zenith, its goddess of steel worshipped, its enemies humbled. But every zenith carries the seed of decline. Even as Japan celebrates, even as Yamato looms invincible, the question lingers in the smoke-filled air. Can a single victory, no matter how glorious, hold back the tide of American industry and resolve? Or has Midway in triumph only delayed the inevitable? The ocean does not answer. It only carries the echoes of thunder, the guns of Yamato, the cries of the fallen, and the silence of ships slipping beneath the waves.